Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rod Buxton, and I'm the president of the Board of Trustees here at the church. We wanted just to take some time and talk to the whole church about our building, some of the renovations, some of the issues that we've been having, and we thought the best way to do that is to actually make a video. It has just been a crazy year. You know, normally, we can talk to people in the fellowship, we can answer questions, just totally different this year. So we're gonna try making a video and hopefully answering any questions that you might have just about the building and where we're at and where we see the future heading. So I'll start off and just kind of review a little bit of the history of how this process of looking at the building and looking at some renovations, kind of where we were at, how we got here. Doug Lambert's going to come up and just talk about our search process, how we looked at different options. We'll have Scott Oakman come up. He'll talk about just the nuts and bolts of what we need to do now and what we need to do in the future. Judy will come up and just talk over our finances, talk a little bit about the bank and our funding and where we're at with that, and Sean will close us out. But before we get into it, I just really wanted to commend the church. You know, this has been a tough year, but despite the challenges, despite people losing their jobs, despite people getting their hours cut, the church is in good shape financially. We've got money in the bank in our operating fund. We've got money in the bank in our building fund. We've got a membership that is growing. Our contribution has been strong. So I really want to commend the church. You know, Cincinnati through the years has been known as a giving church, and we're seeing it in this past year. So really, we've done a fantastic job. Specific to kind of how we got here, back probably in early 2018, we started looking at the condition of our building. Some of the things that needed to be done, some of the things that have to be done, and some of the things that we wanted to make some improvements. We had a number of people that have come to us that have said, you know, if we did this, it would really improve the worship experience. On the other side, we've had people that have come up and said, we have to get this fixed. We've got water coming in. We've got issues here. We've got issues there. So we have a lot of wants and needs. So a couple years ago, we started kind of compiling those wants and needs and really looking in how can we address that for our building. Because really, I mean, this is our home. Years and years ago, those of you who have been around 30 years, you remember what it's like to go from hotel to rent here to rent there, and the children's ministry consisted of a box that was in your trunk. But now we have a home where we can meet together and worship God, and we need to take care of it. So we started compiling all of those wants and needs, and I'll just briefly address a couple of them here. We had to look at our heating and air conditioning unit. We got a couple of very large units on the ceiling. We got a number of them outside. We need better wheelchair access. Our current chairlift is very challenging. We'd love to have restrooms on this level. It would be so much easier, particularly for our older members, not to have to go up and down the stairs and to be able to have a restroom on this area. Our cafeteria, love the cafeteria, but unfortunately it's not big enough for all of us to meet together. If there was a way we could expand it or make it a little bit larger or a little bit more friendlier, that would be nice just for our fellowship to be together more. Our building layout. We got a lot of rooms, but the layout really isn't the best use of the space. We've got rooms that are giant with very small classes in it, and there's other needs that we need that if we reconfigured the layout of our building, it would be a lot more friendly. For instance, it'd be great to have a lobby back behind the auditorium, where again, we could have more people meeting together, more fellowship, the emphasis being on just more, the ability to be together more. There's other things that just come with time. You know, you look at our carpet. Our carpet's nearly 20 years old. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have walked on it, spilled on it, dirt, things get built in and wore out. We need to replace the carpet. Our chairs are still hanging in there, but they are 20 years old. They're wearing out. They're having breaking issues. So at some point, we're going to have to replace that. Our audiovisual, it's great that we've got the songs behind us, but our unit is about 20 years old. That needs to be improved. Can we get by a little bit? Yeah, but we need to improve it. The ceiling in the back, you know, one of the things that we looked at, or one of the suggestions, is it seems low and kind of boxed in. Is there a way to open that up? Don't know. So we took all of these wants and needs and kind of packaged them together. We hired a consultant to help us look at what those costs would be. We hired an architect just to draw up some plans, and we presented that to the church, some ideas that were, you know, very grand, some ideas that were very practical, but we had to have something together, concise, that we could then go to the bank and assign costs to it and look at what kind of funding would be necessary to get that. So we did all that. We put our ideas together. I think we presented to the church a three-phase plan, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And that was great. But when we went to the bank depends on one thing. They want to loan us money. We're in good shape, but they need the collateral of this building. They need it to appraise high for us to get the funding that we need. Unfortunately, given the current real estate situation, the type of building that we have, the location, the parking, our building really didn't appraise very high. And that was very discouraging, to be honest, because we had made all these plans and really looked at what we could do, but we couldn't get the funding. So we basically had to step back and start over. So one of the things we did, and Doug's going to come up here in a second, we needed to look at, should we stay here or should we look somewhere else? So that's kind of the history of how we got here. Doug's going to come up now and just talk about our process of how we looked around at different options, and then Scott and Judy will wrap us up. So thank you.
Thank you, Rod. I appreciate that. And you're going to see the different people involved in this, but I really am grateful to Rod and Scott and Judy, who literally have spent hundreds of hours on this process, and that's no exaggeration. As Rod shared, we really began this all the way back in spring of 2018 in earnest. And one of the things we did at the time when we were looking about the needs for our building, we really stepped back and go, okay, let's look at all available options. You know, there's the renovation of our building and we stay here, but the other options would be then to sell this building and look at some other possible locations. So at that time, we worked with a commercial realtor and really to do two things. One, we looked at the likelihood of selling our building, what we would get for our building, obviously because we would need the money from that to look into anything else. But then we looked at other possible scenarios, one of which was purchasing perhaps a larger church building that was maybe in better condition than this. So we looked at that. We also looked at the availability of commercial or industrial locations, buildings that could be converted into a place for us to be able to use to meet together. And the other thing then we looked at was purchasing land and then building a building. But as we talked about that and as we worked with the commercial realtor, one of the things that we decided was very important after getting a lot of input is that we wanted to stay within Hamilton County and specifically closer to the city. Because while there are a lot of options available once you get out into the outlying counties and the suburbs, we felt it was very important. We are the Cincinnati Church of Christ, that we stay connected with the city of Cincinnati, and also we stay connected with the campus ministries at University of Cincinnati and Xavier. And so that was kind of our search parameters, and we worked with the realtor. We looked at several different options, even including the possibility of maybe 2 or 3 different locations that would be smaller, where we would meet in multiple locations. We looked at all that with the realtor. We checked out a lot of options, and we kept coming back to the fact that the most affordable and the option that would most work for us as a church always kept coming back to this building. We exhausted every possible scenario in looking at all the different options. And so that's kind of where we landed really in the summer and fall of 2018. Well, as we moved forward with the renovation that Rob was sharing about and looked at all the different scenarios and what we would like to do and then kind of what we could afford to do, we decided again this fall, let's just circle back again before we move forward with renovating our building. Let's revisit the possible options of purchasing a church building or buildings, purchasing commercial or industrial property that we can convert, and looking at land. And we did it all over again. We worked with commercial realtors, visited a lot of different locations, looked at it, and came back to the same conclusion. The most affordable and the most workable option for us as a church is to stay here in this building and renovate it. So I know some of you have had a question about that. We've actually done this search 2 different times, looking at selling our building and some other different options. And with the help of professional commercial realtors, it has just become overwhelmingly clear that this is the best possible option for our building situation. So I wanted to share that with you and just give you an update on what we've done 2 different times as we looked at every possible scenario. Thank you.
18 years ago, Judy and I moved to Cincinnati, and we had purchased a house. And when we purchased a house, it was in dire need. So the first thing we did over the first several years is we just fixed things that were broken with it. And then eventually over time, we would be able to make some improvements. And basically that scenario is what we've done with this building. This building was purchased, I think, about 20 years ago, did some renovation improvements in that. But since then, all we've been doing is just basically fighting fires. We've just been fixing things as they break and that. And it gets to a point where you just can't keep up with that. So we tried this, so we looked at doing the renovation and everything like that. We tried to do it in 3 phases, and not initially, but secondly, to try to see how we could finance that. And bottom line, it's already been shared, what the building is worth and what we get money for, it just doesn't match up. So the way the renovation is looking like it's going to go is basically we have immediate repairs that we have to do now on the building. And then I broke it into upgrades, then other things that we no longer can consider, and then items outside of the renovation scope. Some of the immediate repairs that we need to do is install drainage in the cafeteria. We have water intrusion coming through our block walls into the cafeteria. It's going to crumble that foundation if we don't get that fixed. And that runs about $30,000 just to run the drainage to fix that water intrusion problem in our cafeteria. Some of the other things that we're going to do is we're not going to replace the flat roofs. We're actually going to do some repairs on the flat roofs and do the reseaming and reflashing on the roof. That will save a lot of money, and we can get a few more years out of that. Doug mentioned the chair, or I think Rod mentioned the chairlift and that thing has got to go. I got together with a gentleman. We're going to look at installing a vertical chairlift that will go from basically the cafeteria right up into the gathering area in the back of the auditorium. That will really help because there's no access for getting anybody with disability from here down into the cafeteria. This will resolve that problem, because right now we would have to take them outside to get them to the cafeteria, or we just have to carry them down the steps. So we're going to replace the chairlift. We need to modify the plumbing on the how we fill the baptism tank. There's been a couple of near accidents that's happened because we have to climb up an 8-foot ladder, hang on some pipes in order to drain and seal the drain, also to turn the water on and on. It's just dangerous, so we're going to do that. We're going to install air conditioning in the kitchen and heating in the kitchen, the rear entranceway, which is always freezing cold, and the bathrooms by the cafeteria. We're also going to do add some heating into this stairwell here, that single door that goes into the auditorium from the back of the building. It leads up into the auditorium or down the teen hallway. We're going to add some heat in there. That thing's always freezing. We need to get that done. We're going to have very few door replacements that we need to do. And the backflow valve in a children's ministry room, which is hidden in a closet, we need to get that modified. It's not been able to be tested for years because the way it's designed, it can't be done. If that valve was to blow, it will flood out the children's ministry room, the adjacent classroom, the hallway, and the cafeteria. I was going to do it a couple years ago, but when we talked about renovation, I was hoping that we could get by with it and do it during the phase 3, but which we can no longer do. So we definitely need to get done, or we're going to have a flooding problem downstairs. Some of the upgrades we'd like to do is, or some of the upgrades we are going to do is level the stage. We're going to drywall the baptismal back here, not the whole thing, so you wouldn't still be able to see people to get baptized, but we're going to drywall that and get rid of that screen. That screen is deteriorating. We're going to add bathrooms behind the auditorium where the existing classrooms are. We're going to have a gathering area, a men and women's bathroom, and we're going to build 3 additional smaller, right-sized classrooms for children's ministry back there as well. Let me see. The next thing is the cafeteria drywall. I'd like to bust that out, make that cafeteria larger, and that's where we're going to end up putting the chairlift in right there, which would really help. We can get the handicap parking from the sloped side of the parking lot to the back where it's safer. It's really hard dealing with disabled people in wheelchairs on a sloped parking lot. So we want to get that back there, and that's why we're putting it there. The other thing we want to do is new carpeting and flooring for the auditoriums and stage, the gathering area, the bathrooms, and the new classrooms. Also want to do some painting for the auditorium and stage, the gathering area, the new classrooms, and the new bathrooms and that. Okay, that takes care of the general renovations. The things that we're no longer considering, obviously, is the building addition with the elevator. That's $970,000 to do that. We just can't do that. So we would love to do it. It seemed feasible at the time, but when you get the results back from the bank, we had to come up with other options. So a different vertical chairlift is a much better option than what we have. Raising the flat roof, obviously, that's not going to be done in back of the auditorium. We hope to cut out part of the main structure of the wall back here to make getting into the auditorium easier instead of the 4 little doors. That's extremely expensive considering it's a load-bearing wall. So we are no longer going to be able to do that. And obviously phase 3 renovation, which is downstairs, redesigning the downstairs, adding a hallway, and moving basically the teen room over to where the existing classrooms are at from across the cafeteria, that we could use that as an overflow in case for big events and that. So those things are not, so that's not going to be done. Now, with that, this doesn't cover everything that needs to be done on the building. There are items outside of the renovation that outside of that scope that we're going to have to address in the future, the near future. One of those things is our HVAC units. All of the HVAC units, except for the audiovisual room, the library, and the cafeteria, we only have a few years left on them. I think 3 years possibly from the HVAC engineer that I met with. Those are outside of this scope. We will need to address that in the future. The other thing is we've been having boiler work being done for the last 3 months. And so far, the repairs have worked, but we've had to continue to do more repairs and mods to keep that system running. Maybe one day we might have to replace those boilers. The other thing, too, is the flat roofs. They won't last much longer. They're about $80,000 for each section of the flat roof. One flat roof covers the rear auditorium. The other flat roof covers the classrooms in the back. We are just going to have to, just do repairs, and I think we can get a few years on that. Parking lot asphalt. That parking lot is disintegrating. I'm not sure what it's going to look like after the renovation gets done, but that is something coming down the park. That's about $40,000 to get that done. There's other, like painting downstairs, carpeting downstairs. Those are things that, you know, we can address later that eventually will need to be done. We got holes in the carpet downstairs, in the walkways and things like that. But those are down the line. But so these different things, the HVAC and the boilers and all that stuff, that's stuff for future thought. But hopefully this helps you understand what the money is going to go to for our immediate repairs and also for our upgrades. All right, thank you.
Okay. So we've heard a lot of things today about our initial scope and how big we thought it was going to be and kind of where we're ending up today. And so I think when we started initially, if we were added all of phases 1, 2, and 3 up, those would come to about $2.5 million. We really thought initially we were going to be able to get, we were going to initially focus on phases 1 and 2, and phase 3 would come down the pike. We were going to be able to finance initially phases 1 and 2. Unfortunately, as Rod had shared, our building just did not come back with the appraisal high enough in order to sustain the loan. Chuck is going to actually flip up a slide that I have here that will basically show some of the dollars. And our current appraisal for this building came in at $1,190,000. Again, very disappointing for all of us, really took the wind out of our sails. We really thought it was going to appraise, honestly, at twice that. The loan to value that the bank is going to give us is going to be 70%. That's actually a little bit above what they normally do. Normally their ratio is about 65%. They will give a loan to the value of the collateral. So that comes to about $833,000. We'll pay off our existing mortgage of $333,000. That leaves us about $500,000 left to do renovations. That list that Scott went over a few minutes ago and talked about as we've continued to try to scale back, the cost of those renovations come in around $700,000. And so we've got a gap of $200,000. That's really why we are proposing coming before the congregation and asking for a capital campaign. As Scott said, this is just to do those repairs and to do the needed upgrades. This is not to do really wonderful things that we'd love to be able to do. We'd certainly would love to have been able to put in an elevator, but we're just, we're not going to be able to do that at this time. As a congregation over the years, our philosophy has been to put our money into people, not to put our money in buildings. And we have done that in the time that I've been on the board. I think it's been about 15 years I've been on the board. We have focused on putting our money in people, and I don't think we regret that at all. We love the fact that our church continues to grow. We love the fact that we're known being a generous church, and we continue to give contribution. In this year has been amazing, the contribution that we have continued to give. And so as a church, we feel great about that. As a board, we feel great about that. We don't apologize for that. But as we look at our building now, and as you come and visit us, we know that there are things that we need to do. There are changes that we need to make. And so as we come back to the congregation, we really need to pull together and to see what we can do to make this happen. I encourage you to continue to ask us questions. We're certainly open to that, but we really do need to move forward with this capital campaign. I know that, from what Rod also had shared as far as our finances, we're doing very, very well. All of our numbers are really good. I don't want to steal my thunder for the annual meeting because I really want you to tune into that and come back and watch when we do that financial presentation. But we're really doing well as a congregation. And so as we look forward, really want to see us succeed in this as well. Sean's going to come up now.
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for listening to our presentation this afternoon. And the very first thing that I wanted to do was once again thank all those that have spent many countless hours working on this project, helping us out, coming to all the conclusions and doing all the hard work behind the scenes. Doug mentioned it earlier with Scott and Judy and Doug, especially, and Rod, especially those four, along with the leadership team and the entire board. But these four in particular, they have spent countless numbers of hours before I came to the church here, starting about 2.5 years ago, looking at property, at land, at renovations for this building, getting architects and builders and construction companies involved. There have been hundreds and hundreds of countless numbers of hours that they've been working behind the scenes. And I just want to thank each of you, and I want to thank the rest of the board and the leadership team for all the hard work and the many, many hours that you put into this. And we know we've got a great building here. It needs some work. It needs some things done to it. And I am grateful for the men and women who have spent this much time and this amount of time in really doing the research and the due diligence to really give us some of the best proposals that we possibly can have going forward. Secondly, I want to thank you as a church. During a crazy year and a crazy time, the only reason that we can come to you and really even talk about spending money on some upgrades and repairs on some things that are really, really needed is because in a crazy year, you all have continued to give sacrificially. I am so grateful for your hearts. And we've asked you to give not only your normal contributions, you not only gave, but you gave above what the normal budget was. And we're so grateful for that. When we asked you to give to Africa, you gave to Africa, not only for your missions, but also for COVID relief through Hope. You did a tremendous job, and you've given others to help with holiday projects and so many things throughout the year. And we are just so grateful for the hearts that you've had. And we're also grateful for the patience that you've had. There's nobody that wants to get this renovation started and finished more than the people that I just mentioned, the board and the leadership team and the staff. We can't wait to get the building project, the major stuff done so we can just focus on the ministry of Jesus. And but we've been throwing a few curveballs this last year, and we're grateful and we're thankful for your patience. And then the last thing, I just want to thank you for the comments that you've given us. As we asked a survey, Jeannie, to be filled out about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there were several comments that you made and questions that you had, and we're grateful for all those comments because we really do want the majority of the church to be able to be behind this because this is our church home. This is where we live and we act and we reach out to our community. And so we want to do the upgrades and repair the things on this building so it can be everything that God wants it to be so we can proclaim the gospel of Jesus here in this building and in this community in the best way. And so after looking at land and looking at other buildings, we really came to the conclusion that the best thing that we need to do is to renovate and to repair this existing building because we've done an amazing job of really reaching out to the Deer Park community, to the school system here, and we've done many great things. And we would just hate to leave this community. And also, it's a great location. It literally is about the center of Cincinnati. Almost everybody in the church at a maximum is 30 minutes away. And so we're very, very grateful for that. And so we thought, you know what? We really do believe we need to spend time and money renovating and repairing our existing building. There's 3 or 4 different sections that Scott went through. There's some things that are just in dire need of repair that we absolutely have to fix, or it's going to cost us greater money because of the damage that will be done if we don't repair those things. And so those are things that we just absolutely have to repair right now. And then there's other things that we really, they're big needs that we have, like having a new lift for our elderly and our handicapped. The one that we have is not very functional. It's not a great system. And Scott has worked with a company, and they've come up with a great answer for that. That's economical, but it's also a better lift for our elderly and our handicapped so we can properly get them to every level of our church, especially up here into our sanctuary. Then there's other things that we would like to do is let's have a bathroom on the same level as our sanctuary so people who are elderly and handicapped don't have to go down levels of stairs and back up just to use the restroom in the middle of a service. To have a welcoming area outside the sanctuary so we can gather and welcome and have great fellowship before and after our services. And then as we look around in this auditorium in our sanctuary here, there's just things that need to be repaired. A 20-year-old carpet. It's got stains over it all over the place. A stage that is really not functional for what we want to do. Repairs to the wall, our screen, our projector that are literally, it's on the 11th and a half hour. It's on its last days that need to be repaired so we can make upgrades, not only so the sanctuary can be more workable, but also so we can be a church that's ready to go into the future, that we can better live stream our services and have our cameras and lights and things that will help us out to build a church for the future. So those are the kind of the four areas that we've been talking to you about today. And so, man, if we get this loan and we have a capital campaign for $200,000, it can put the Cincinnati Church of Christ in an incredible spot financially. So we can go forward. So we can continue to be right here in this building in Deer Park for the decades to come. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for just doing great things here in greater Cincinnati, but also right here in Deer Park. So these are our plans. One of the things that we want to do is if you have any feedback, if you have any questions or concerns, we ask that you get back to one of us, myself or Doug or anybody on the board by this Saturday, because we really want to start going forward with the bank, with the loan, and with the construction companies, especially right now in a time where we're in quarantine. We're starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccines, with the numbers starting to go down. Parts of the country, including here, are starting to lighten up just a little bit in the number of cases. And we're hoping and we're praying that maybe by the end of March or by the beginning of April, we could start meeting together. And just maybe we may meet in here and we have some of these renovations done and completed. That's what we're hoping, that we can take advantage of the kind of this downtime where we're not using our building as much to get these things done, to get these projects done and over, and let's start getting back to thinking about building this church, baptizing, making disciples, and doing great things that God has called each and every one of us to do. So thank you so much for your time, for listening to this today. I want to close this out with a prayer. And once again, if you have any questions, please let us know. And we really hope that God will make it very, very clear. And we think he is making it very clear exactly what we need to do and where we need to go going forward. Let's go to God in prayer. Heavenly Father, we love you and praise you. Thank you for today, for being able to have a meeting like this where we can talk about the things that we absolutely have to do for this building and some of the things that we would like to do to make it more user-friendly for everyone involved. And God, I just pray that you will be with us as we're making these decisions, as we're working with the architect, with the builders, with the bank. And God, I just pray that you will open doors that need to be open, close doors that need to be closed. And I pray that you will be glorified and honored by every single thing that we do. We want to build a church that's going to be here for a long, long time, that is going to make such a great impact in Deer Park and all over the greater Cincinnati area. Father, we come before you now. We love you. We praise you. We thank you for all that you do. And we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much.